and the sword is upon her treasures. And that reminds us, of course, of the thief, Christ coming as a thief. Remember, a thief comes to steal, to kill, and destroy. He comes as a thief to take away their treasures. And of course, what is the big treasure that God takes away from every human being when he comes? Life. Life. He's dead forevermore. He's dead forevermore. He takes away life. And of course, he takes away his possibility of being co-heirs with Christ in the new heaven and the new earth. And that is potentially a treasure that any descendant of Adam could have if it was God's good pleasure to save that person. And that is gone. They shall be robbed. You can see how that fits into Christ coming as a thief. Like a thief. Christ is not a thief, of course. Christ is eternal God. Don't ever forget it. But God uses the thief as a picture of Christ coming as a thief. And they shall be robbed. A drought is upon her waters. And you know, I'm reading now verse 38. A drought is upon her waters. And we're talking now about Babylon that started out as the churches, because ultimately this is a tirade against those who claim to be believers and are part of the church age, particularly because they were the group that was in existence at the first day of the Great Tribulation, when all of this began, when God said judgment begins with the house of God, and her drought is dried up. Whatever little tiny bit of truth they still had, that is taken away. It's amazing. It's amazing when we look at churches and see how they have lost their sensitivity for the authority of the Bible, as they have just changed the laws of the position of women in the church, the marriage and divorce laws, and sexual laws, and all kinds of laws. Whatever they did have. And you know, if you lived 50 years ago and were an active person in the churches, it was a whole lot different, like in Sunday observance and marriage and divorce, and it was in morality and just a whole lot of things. It was a whole different story, and that was a great blessing for those people back then, even though they were not a child of God, because most of them had a completely wrong salvation plan. They were still subject to a do-it-yourself salvation plan, but because they lived very, very decent moral lives, they were when they died, they had quite a lot of enjoyment out of this world, and they didn't know that they had lost out on everything else, but because when they died, that was the end of their conscious existence. But then we read, for a drought is upon her waters, and they shall be dried up, for it is the land of graven images, and they are mad upon their idols. And they will, that word mad, again, is a real troublesome one, but the best I've been able to find out is that if we translate this, that they will boast about their idols. They are mad about them in the sense of, we like this so much. We're just so enthusiastic about this. We're almost out of our minds in our joy, and so they glory in their idols. They boast in their idols, and this is exactly what we see today. You go to churches that have been the most conservative churches. They have strong confessions like the Westminster Confession or the Heidelberg Catechism or whatever. And my, this is it. This is it. We have the truth, and we know we have the truth. They boast about, we have the right confession. And don't you tell us for 1 minute that we are not following the Bible. Don't you dare do that, because we have the truth. They are boasting, they're glorying in their idols, because that confession has become an idol. That is what they are trusting in for their salvation. That is what they follow. I can speak quite authoritatively about this, because I've been in those kind of churches, and my, there's an enormous trust in those confessions, and this is the way we have to understand that. I believe, therefore, the wild beasts of the desert with the wild beasts of the islands shall dwell there, and the owls shall dwell therein, and it shall be no more inhabited forever. Remember, some time back we went through a study of Isaiah 34, where it talks about the cormorant and the owls and the everything else being there. We were on vacation for a few days this summer, and I suddenly saw a picture of why God is using this. We had a campsite, and lots of people around, and so there were crumbs on the table, and there were and then everyone went swimming, and I was appointed to be the camp guardian because I didn't care to go swimming. And so I sat there. It was a wonderful time to ponder the Bible and meditate, but almost instantly, when everybody left, the crows came, and the ground squirrels came, and the woodpeckers came, and they were all around everywhere. As soon as mankind left, there, all the wild things were there. And I thought, that is the portrait that God is giving. When man is no longer on this earth is going to be occupied by the wild birds, the unclean animals, and they're going to have a heyday. It's just a figure to indicate that man is gone forever. Man is gone forever. It doesn't mean that those animals, those wild birds and so on, are going to be there forever, but because God is defining everlasting punishment in Jude 7 as being totally consumed, totally gone. But that I can surely see why God uses that, because when all those wild animals are there, those birds are there, they will not coexist with human beings. They're out in the Everglades, or they're out in the mountains, or they're out in the trees way over, or they're some other place. And it is, and that's why it says, they shall dwell therein, and it shall not be no more. I'm reading verse 39. No more inhabited forever, neither shall it be dwelled in from generation to generation. And generation to generation, again, is a figure of forever. It's like a generation that goes on and on and on. There's no end, and it's a figure of forever. But as I've indicated, God gives us a definition of forever, that it simply means it's like Sodom and Gomorrah. It was destroyed, and it was completely destroyed. In fact, he says that in verse 40. Look at that. As God overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah and the neighbor cities thereof, saith the Lord, so shall no man abide there, neither shall any son of man dwell therein. And let's look again, just for a moment, at for us what eternity is insofar as God's wrath is concerned. Even as Sodom and Gomorrah and the cities about them in like manner, giving themselves over to fornication and going after strange flesh, are set forth for an example, suffering the vengeance of eternal fire. And that simply means fire that will consume them eternally. But we have to pause for this message.